Welcome to High Tea with Grace, where we spill the tea on HIT. I'm thrilled to be here in sunny Las Vegas at the Health Conference to learn from the industry's greatest leaders about trends in digital health and beyond. Today, I'm honored to have the opportunity to speak with Missy Krasner, angel investor, advisor, and board member to Penguin AI and numerous other companies in this space. Thanks for joining me today, Missy.
Oh, it's such a pleasure. It's so great to be in Vegas. And it is actually sunny, but we won't see the sun for a while.
Very true. The best part of this conference and the worst part of this conference. So tell us about the career path that brought you to your role today.
Yeah, well, actually, it's really fun. I actually get the privilege to serve on several digital health boards. Just recently helped co-found Penguin AI with the infamous Fawad Butt. He used to be the chief data officer at Kaiser Permanente, United, and Optum. We just closed a very nice Series A, and we just announced a large partnership with UPMC. It's a great healthcare AI company working on back office administration. But I actually am at a point in my career where I'm working with 5 or 6 other digital health companies, tech-enabled services in behavioral health, value-based care tooling, a lot of interoperability startups. And it really dovetails nicely back to my background. I've done 3 tours in big tech. I was at Amazon when they first bought PillPack and they went into healthcare with Amazon Care. I was at the very first Google Health OG. That was when Marissa Meyer was there and Eric Schmidt was there. I literally came to I had Eric Schmidt with me at the first HIMSS where he did the keynote and we launched Google Health V1. There's like 8 other Google Healths now. And then I was at Box during the IPO days with Aaron Levy and ran a healthcare P&L there. And then I did one small tour in venture capital and I got the privilege of funding companies like Practice Fusion and Doximity. So it's been really fun. And I'm now really at the point where I want to do board and advisory work and I get to work with extremely phenomenal founders.
You are so well connected. Like everyone that I know knows you. We have probably 500 or 600 mutual connections on LinkedIn, which is just wild to me. And I feel like I always see you and I see you in the right places. And I'm so thrilled to learn from you today. I feel like I should be paying you for your time. Like I'm seriously so grateful to have you here. So let's talk a little bit about what's going on in the space. You're sitting in the middle of a lot of different trends, but really AI is dominating the healthcare conversation right now. Everyone's trying to figure out how to best apply large language models and small language models as well. It's in healthcare in some way. So from your perspective, what are some of the biggest challenges we're facing in making large language models truly effective in healthcare? And how can we start evolving them?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I have just gotten a huge MBA lesson in AI from being with Penguin AI. Just unbelievable group of talent there. And I will tell you 3 things that I'm noticing. First of all, being on the health floor. Last year was the first time that health had an AI village, a pavilion, and literally had maybe 7 or 8 sort of tracks and sort of content that was very AI related. And the buyer market was super nascent back then. So what I think we're seeing now is there's a lot of the commercial large language models, and there's even this sort of open source large language models. And there are 2 kinds of companies. There are companies that are essentially using large language models for automation tools to help make their businesses run more efficiently, but it's not necessarily what they're selling, but they have AI in their workflow, which if you're not using that now, you're pretty much going to be left behind. Then there's a whole other crop of companies that are what I call the Gen AI wrappers. These are companies that essentially aren't AI native, right? But they're figuring out how to bolt on AI into their workflows. And then last but not least are the AI native companies. These are companies that are either using their own small language models and training on proprietary data and doing very small task-based models that support digital workers or agents, or have figured out a way to actually build an entirely new foundation model, like our friends over at Hopper AI that have done a radiology foundation model. That's a huge, big thing to do. So the market is evolving radically fast, and now we're in this whole sort of new phase of agentic AI.
So let's talk about that, agentic AI. How do you think these agent-based systems could improve efficiency for payers, providers, and what's your take on this so-called agent wars, which is happening right now? Providers are using agents and payers are using agents, and they're talking to each other and they're fighting with each other and they're negotiating with each other. It's like, where are we? Is this the future?
I think that you're going to start seeing a more of an agentic framework in a lot of the administrative back office, because that's where you have discrete workflows that have handoffs where very low level reasoning and decision making can be made by a non-human as long as there's a human in the loop checking accuracy. So things like prior auth, everything on the mantelpiece is open for business. Like denials, appeals, like all of the denials management. So for instance, like one of the things that Penguin does is it can look at all of the denials that have come back. It can analyze which denials you should pursue and interrogate that you will have the highest probability of essentially, getting an appeal, and doing that in a less manual way. You've got providers that essentially are trying to get their prior auths through. And when they get a denial on the behalf of the patient, they're trying to work through an appeal, right? You've got the payers who are trying to figure out how to sift through all of the appeals coming in, and they're using bots. So we're already seeing a lot of that on the provider payer workflow. I think clinical, it's going to take us a while to get to agentic. We're going to need some time. But you can imagine just some of the workflow handoffs there, right? Someone comes in, there's a patient encounter, there's ambient scribing, goes into a SOAP note, and then there's actions right away around order, prescribe, refer. That's examples of agents doing discrete workflows and talking to each other.
Wow. And there's also kind of a growing buzz too in these floors and beyond around AI-driven behavioral health tools, even chatbot therapists, et cetera. So tell me, what's your view on the promise and pitfalls of using, conversational AI in such a deeply personal area of care?
Yeah, I'm on the board of a company in gut care and GI, and it's called Side by Health. And they are doing, and anybody that has irritable bowel syndrome that needs help from a registered dietitian on food planning, as well as the behavioral gut, so that, sort of connection, like I'm an IBS person, I get stressed out, I get immediate symptoms, right? So there's a big behavioral health stress management piece around that. What we're finding is insurance today completely will reimburse for an RD, a registered dietitian, and or a therapy, but they will not reimburse an AI bot. So the big issue around in behavioral health right now, and everybody's talking about sort of a chat bot that can do therapy assistant in between visits, or a chat bot that can essentially get to know all of your sort of personal issues and have a conversation with you in real time about what's happening. Like, hey, my boyfriend's breaking up with me. We're taking 30 days off, and he just reached out to me. What do I do? Right? That's interesting, but there's no payment scheme for that right now, right? So the people that are developing it, like my company SideBy, I'm in a couple of behavioral health companies. I had a company called Uplift that exited and sold to Teladoc and BetterHelp. Everybody wants to actually kind of create this to sort of be competitive. And when they're selling into a payer or selling into a health system or selling into, even consumers, hey, you'll see real humans and real therapists, but here's something in between your visits that can kind of keep you in track that the therapist can look at with you, but is available to you 24/7. So it's an augment assist. But until we find a reimbursement scheme, I think that's just going to still be very challenging. There's a lot of regulatory issues and a lot of danger around that as well.
Absolutely. And you work closely with healthcare startups in all areas. So what trends are emerging areas in healthcare innovation are you most excited about right now? Are there spaces like GLP-1s you kind of mentioned, obesity care, longevity, primary care innovation, value-based care tooling, that really stand out to you as really transformative?
I think we've sort of hit the peak in the saturation of all of the new obesity clinics that essentially are either four-wall or virtual. There's lots of companies that have fantastic valuations around sort of building a network of 1099 registered dietitians that can help you with GLP-1 planning, when we're going to tighter down. It's a really interesting time. And I think that movement has spilled over into more D2C retailerization of healthcare, which we've seen 10, 20 incantations of that has never gone anywhere, from Amazon, from Walmart, from all the biggies, right? And I think because of the obesity movement and the pressure for formularies to open and for employers to be like, am I doing this? Am I doing this? And that's going to spill over into the longevity group. So longevity is really interesting right now. And I guess my 2 cents on value-based care tooling is value-based care is definitely still here. I think this administration is open to it. It's still got a slow boil, but the tooling involved in order to get the financial contracting right and the tooling involved for practice transformation, I feel like that's a sort of wedge kind of new class. And I'm seeing some really interesting startups in that. I'm actually helping out a startup that's very, 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 very early and has amazing, they've been out in market for a year and a half and they already have 3 or 4 customers. So that's been an easy thing for them to glide through.
So interesting. And as you're kind of looking ahead, what gives you the most optimism about the future of healthcare, especially as technology, policy, and care models continue to evolve to meet the needs of patients, providers, and health systems? What's keeping you up at night in a good way, where you're like, yes, I'm going to keep going in this space, and it's inspiring me.
Yeah. Look, I think for your listeners, it's a tough time in healthcare right now. We all know, I think what's going to happen is in the next year, we're going to see the pullback on Medicaid. We're going to see a big change, depending on what happens with this government shutdown and whether or not the ACA tax subsidies stay. We're going to see, what's going to essentially happen is there's going to be a massive amount of cost shifting from where the safety net was taken care of to consumers and employees, right? Because their employers are going to get hit with these massive raise in their healthcare benefits offering. Employees are going to have more out-of-pocket costs, and consumers are going to essentially pick up the bill of where safety net was getting care. And what that's going to end up driving people, it's going to drive them more into paying for care for cash. It's going to be fully this sort of new, interesting model where people are going to, and the GLP-1 use case has already sort of set us up for that. But that's where I think healthcare is going to go. And that's when we're going to see a really interesting pocket of innovation, because so many companies, and particularly me at Amazon and Google, I had all these great founders that were like, I'm going to fix healthcare. I have the technology to fix healthcare. And they sort of had the hubris of not understanding the culture of healthcare, the payment reform that needs to happen in healthcare, and would come in and then they would fail. I think in about a year or two, when we're sort of hitting the skids around this risk sharing and moving all of this over onto the burden of the consumer, that's when you're going to have an opening of innovation. So that keeps me excited, but we got to get through this tough time that we're in right now.
Totally hear you on that. And I'm hearing that across the board, but man, do you say it well. You explain it so clearly. I love it. So, my listeners love to hear about what trends are happening in the space, but they also love to learn about what drives women in health IT. So tell me, what are things that you do in your daily life? You're a busy professional working with so many amazing companies and giving them advice and working late into the night, early in the morning. What are habits and things that you do during your day to work your best and make a difference? How do you keep going?
Yes. So 3 things that I do that sort of work for me, and I do a lot of context switching. So, being in 5 to 7 companies, I might be in an active fundraise with one company. I might have another company that's going through a branding and launching exercise where they've been in stealth mode and they're trying to figure out how to do their, sort of starter website, work with excellent sort of media people to try to get a story out, get an angle out, all the way to oh my gosh, we just raised and we're in heads down implementation mode. We have a couple customers. We need to hire up and we need to get these customers in production. So it's a lot of context switching. So what I do is I literally, it's kind of goofy. I wake up in the morning and I write down the 3 highest leverage items that I could do that day that would help impact my startups. Maybe one would be, hey, this company needs in the next 4 days an anchor pilot, and I need to call 4 large medical groups that I know to try to sort of make an introduction. Or, hey, this company needs to get their brand up, so I'm going to help them come up with, a go-to-market press strategy and work with the PR team, right? Whatever it is. And I just say, these are the 3 things today. And normally I'll get to 1.5, because, the day will get away from me. And then I just give myself a red, yellow, green at the end of the day. If I'm red, I didn't do it. If I'm yellow, I kind of got some of it done. If I'm green, I got it done. And you know where I learned that from? I learned that from when I was actually at Redesign Health as a venture chair. We were incubating so many companies, and we had so many babies that I would get sort of stuck in the mud with the babies. I'd be like, oh my gosh, we've got 8 interviews today for a CEO. And I would be so in the weeds that I couldn't lift up and be like, hey, what's my highest leverage point for me? Because I'm not operating, I'm just advising and helping these companies. Where can I open up a door? Where can I just, and I think as a young professional, I did not do that. I really was in the weeds. And I felt like, hey, I'm tasking stuff off my list. I love being in the weeds. Look at how much I got done. But it wasn't high impact, high leverage stuff. So that's where I'm trying to go in my 50s.
I love it. I love it. And such great advice. And kind of looking back at your younger self and your career world, what piece of advice would you give her as she's entering the healthcare industry, starting her jobs? And
I got to tell you, I reflect on this a lot. So I'm going to be turning 55 in July. I got married very late in life, and I'm very lucky. I'm at this point where, I moved to Laguna Beach. I'm in Southern California. I'm really trying to sort of enjoy this part of my career. And I will tell you, I reflect back on my early days at Google or at Amazon, or even when I worked in Washington, D.C. for the first office of the National Coordinator in Government with David Brailer. And, it was pre-High Tech Act. We were doing EHR, meaningful use, like all of that sort of really fun legislation. It was my first time in D.C. I was like, wow, this is amazing. But the number one thing that I did in my early days that I won't do again is I overworked. I worked like 80, 90 hours, and I thought I had to. I thought I had to work that hard to just get ahead. Like I was a busy bee. I was highly prolific. I was efficient. And I was like, hey, straight A student, top of my class. And I didn't need to do that. Like I could have I didn't work smart. I just worked fast and like a lot, like it was volume. And so it really is trying to figure out you don't have to prove yourself as much. And I think women, particularly young women, are like, oh, I can prove myself with just pure force, right? I'll just work super hard. And there are other women that work more strategically or work smarter and just have bigger impact. So it's very thematically related to what I just said. I think the last thing that I would say is I did not negotiate well. I just felt like I was so lucky to be in some of these early startups. I was in a startup very early in my career that did have an IPO. And I was just like, wow, I'm a baby. I don't really know what I'm doing. And I look back on my early self and I say, girl, if I could just pick you up by the nape of the neck and I could say, you have so much worth, even when I got out of Google, I was like Google, I was like there for 6 or 7 years, and I just never really valued the ability to just say, this is what I need. This is what I want. I have options. And really lay that down. And so a lot of the young CEOs that I work with today, particularly in negotiations with term sheets, it's like, oh my God, I got a term sheet, go. And it's like, let's sit down, let's think about this. Like you have some leverage, they're interested in you. It's in everything. It's in hiring, it's in trying to figure out how to negotiate swim lanes and roles. So that's a skill that I've really sort of, in my later life, like I read books on it, I'm still trying to figure it out. Because as women, it's still a challenge, I think, for us as a class of workers.
Snaps all around. All of us are like, yes, sister, say it out loud. Say it out loud. Girls.
Preach.
Negotiate.
Yeah.
So to finish this conversation off right, where can our listeners find you online?
Wow. LinkedIn is always great. I'm super active on LinkedIn. I'm not as active on all the socials in my elder years.
I got to say, I love following you on LinkedIn, especially seeing what you like and comment on and things, because you're so well connected and know so much about the space. It's always fantastic to follow you. So thank you so much for joining us today. It was awesome to learn from you.
No, so much fun being here. Thank you.
And thanks to you folks for joining us too. Check out the High Tea with Grace podcast for more interviews with great guests like Missy today. Cheers!
Like a Girl Media is more than a media network. It's a community. We want to meet you and amplify your voice and the voices of outstanding women innovating in healthcare. Interested in starting your own podcast or hosting an event near you? Connect with us online or in person. We're here to support and empower you.